everyone, and welcome back. It's been a couple of weeks since we last streamed, but here we are. Another week in Vault Hunters. Huzzah! I'm stood facing as little of the base as possible for some very good reasons, and those good reasons are there's been a lot going on. Haven't had time to stream for a few weeks, but have had time in amongst other things to bloop on and do a little bit of building work, do a little bit of upgrading here and there. So whilst there hasn't been a solid chunk of time to do a stream, there has been some progress. We said we were going to build a nuclear reactor, and by gosh, I did it. It did take all of the resources in the world, but this gigantic, beautiful beast is complete. I have basically taken this area behind the greenhouse and behind Casa de Hovel and turned it into just a big nuclear reactor site. So we've got a nice cooling chamber. This thing is a massive battery. I built it before I really knew how induction stuff worked, so it's way bigger than it needs to be, but that's fine. It can hold 435 giga FE. It'll take a while to fill. But we've got, if I run through the outside first, anything with hazard warnings on it, do not break them. I'm telling this to Silence as well, because I've not actually shown him round this since it got up and running. But if it's got a hazard warning sign on it, just don't break it, because I may have had to replace the villagers and the moose rooms, because I may have had a radiation problem.
And the pandas, and the
and the pandas, and basically anything that's sort of this side of the base, so up to the front door, may have got murdered slightly by a radiation leak. Whoops. Well, I'm next to them. Silence has very handily gone around and put in a lot of new beacons as well, so we've got beacons everywhere now, so we're getting the benefit of those all over the shop, which is just really handy in general. But yes, anything in hazard warning signs, that's covering up pipes which carry radioactive waste or radioactive materials. If you break a pipe carrying those things, it will leak radiation into a quite ginormous area. So generally speaking, I'd advise against it. But this area out here is making brine, which is we do already have brine over there that what Silence made before, and one of these is now making lithium as well. But we needed more because I needed some specifically for this. So this is the brine station. Then this comes inside under a pipeway system that I've put in into the main fuel production line, which is in here. So the fuel production line takes in resources from down here. So this is, again, warning signs, do not break here. There is doom to be had because this pipe is full of polonium gas. Not advisable. Yeah, so this all runs from above us there and pulls all this stuff across into the main factory. We've also run cabling for computers. This is Steve. He's the foreman, so we respect Steve at all times. He didn't look like this when he started working for us, but we just don't mention that to the union and it's all fine. But this system in here takes the brine and makes it into chlorine and sodium. The sodium goes off to cool the reactor, and then that goes into an electrolytic separator, which makes it into separates out water and takes the water in, separates it into hydrogen and oxygen. Those two things, so the chlorine and that, get fed into here, makes hydrogen chloride, which then goes into here, which makes sulfur dust from hydrogen chloride and gunpowder. That gets whisked off into the computer, which then gets deposited back in here, which gets turned into sulfur dioxide. Oh, so confusing. That then goes into here, which becomes sulfur trioxide from some oxygen from another separator, which then gets pumped into here, which takes steam from the rotary steam and the sulfur trioxide to make sulfuric acid, which then gets pumped over once more into here, and this takes that and combines it with fluorite to make hydrofluoric acid, very useful, which then gets pumped into a chemical infuser, which takes the hydrofluoric acid, and then a separate side, we take uranium, gets turned into yellow cake uranium in an enrichment chamber, and then that gets put into a chemical oxidizer, which turns it into uranium oxide, which then comes into here as well. So that makes uranium hexafluoride from the hydrofluoric acid and the uranium oxide, which then gets pumped into a isotropic centrifuge, which spins it into fissile fuel. And breathe. And that is the process to make fissile fuel to feed our reactor. Not complicated at all. And then
Had
that goes
everyone
off.
joined for a chemistry lesson today.
Yeah, it only took like 6 minutes to explain how to make the ingredient to make this. So in the old power generator, the power nuclear reactor, it makes way less power, but you literally just take the thing, put it in the thing. That's it. So this is just a whole other thing. Ah yes, blowing bubbles in the nuclear reactor, that's a good idea. But then if we come through here, this is the bit I need to show you, Silence.
Oh dear.
We have this set up. So the fissile fuel comes out of the wall here and pumps into the reactor, which is here. If you right click on it, you'll see that it's got a GUI. Do not hit the activate button right now, bad things will happen. If you click the little...
Put these tubes in a worse way.
I mean, it's a nuclear reactor, it needs to look nuclear reactory.
Did you not
But also,
see the
yes,
love I put
probably.
into the old basement where I lovingly reset all the cables?
No, they're here.
Right, I'm going to pull all this apart.
No, I needed to, don't pull this apart. It took me so long to get the correct amount of sodium into this system. I need to monitor these. So this is the sodium these two tubes over here. This is the sodium that comes from the sodium system in the fuel station. That comes into here. These do not currently feed into the system. They're turned off at the end of the pipe because these are just for if we ever need to inject extra in.
Okay.
Then this is a closed loop system. So there's sodium to cool the fission reactor in here. There's 17.5 million millibuckets in there. Then there's these two pipes which are full of it and this tank. Then there's in the boiler, there is a full coolant tank's worth and a little bit of heated coolant because I've only just turned it off about half an hour ago. That will eventually trickle out. But these pipes hold just enough to have a 15.1 burn rate, which produces quite a lot of power. This boiler can't handle more than that, but if you change the pipes, it will break. So please don't change the pipes. It took so long to balance. This is the turn on water switch here. What was that? Oh, you got a flute. Excellent. Well, you play your flute. So, the components for the reactor is the fissile fuel comes into the reactor here and the sodium coolant. So this is fissile fuel, it burns. Sodium keeps it cold. Once the sodium's been heated up, it goes into the heated coolant tank, and then waste goes into the waste tank. So fissile fuel in a 1-for-1 millibucket burns and produces waste. The waste gets pumped outside and goes into solar activators to become polonium. The hot reaction sodium goes out of these pipes into a boiler. The boiler heats up water, which then cools down the sodium, pumps it back out, back into the system. The steam goes up into this gigantic turbine above our heads and uses the steam that we've produced to spin up and produce power. That then pumps the power out, sends it through the wall. Yeah, that's a big giant thing above us. Sends it through the wall and then fills up the induction matrix with power, which currently has 1.75 giga FE. The capacity is a lot more than that. Currently outputting 0, inputting 0 because nothing's on. This system here was the original battery bank I made whilst I was setting up the induction matrix. This can hold 250 million FE, so not that much. It's currently turned off. This switch turns it on if we ever need it on as an extra power boost. It is isolated, so it will charge back up from above, but it can't, nothing can take power from it currently. This other switch, which says energy regulator, if this energy system gets full, and then the turbine's energy bank gets full, it will fill up with steam, stop working, and everything will turn off. I've set up the reactor so that if that happens, it turns off rather than melting down by having some reaction logic adapters. So if it has excess waste, insufficient fuel, or too hot, it will turn off. And if the steam stops getting dealt with, it'll get too hot, it'll turn off. Everything's safe. So we won't be producing power, but the base won't explode, which I'll take as a win. But to stop that happening, I've got some heaters up here, just resistive heaters, set to use 126,000 FE a tick. 2 of them. That plus that, and then I've got something else outside. I've forgotten the name of it, but there's something else outside also that basically, if I flip this switch, it sends signals through this redstone system here and turns all 3 of those things on, and that will eat power for fun. So that will mean that the reactor stays on even if everything's full. So
Okay.
if you need to, for example, we have to make polonium to make antimatter, which I'll get onto in a second. If the battery's full, but we need some polonium, you need to burn the power somewhere. So that's what that system's for. It's the we've got
Right.
too much power button, basically.
I
But
see.
to turn this on, first of all, you flip the water switch. Water switch is on. Then you go into the fission reactor, and then you go to the status in the top right corner. The current burn rate is set to 15.1. If I turn this on right now, it will immediately overheat and turn off. So you turn that down to 8. Then you turn it on. It is now on.
Oh, that is not quiet.
It's not quiet at all. That is now burning with the water tank. You leave the extra water switch on, and you go into status, and you turn it up by 2 increments at a time. So from 8 to 10. Let that do its thing, and it'll balance out. It's balanced. Now you turn it up to 12. Give that a hot second to balance out. It's balanced
What am I
out.
watching to have balanced out?
So basically, the water tank in the thermoelectric boiler will dip slightly when you turn up the amount of boil.
Oh, okay.
When it
so long
dips,
as you
you
don't...
let it regulate.
Right, okay. So you
like,
adjust it and make
and-
sure it's full of water again.
Yes. Then I go up
Gotcha.
to 14. It'll dip a second. It's dipped. We've got 7.2774 superheated coolant, but the coolant is still, so if you look at these pipes are emptying slightly, but there's still spare coolant, which is what we want.
Yeah.
And then we can pump that up to the full 15.1. And then we can turn off the...
change at all.
Yeah, okay, just keep watching it. If I now turn off this, which I'm going to have to, else it's going to get too full. If I then put this to 15.2,
I can see the
it'll
sodium.
empty the sodium tank, and then it'll empty these pipes, and we'll run out of everything, and then the water will run out. So I'm just going to turn that back to 50. So basically, the sodium will get eaten out of these pipes, and then it will overflow the sodium heated coolant tank, and then it will boil the water away, and then the whole thing will overheat.
Good times.
If I could be bothered, I could make the boiler casing bigger, but if we look at the turbine at the moment, so right click on the industrial turbine, it's making 604.71 kFE a tick, which is more than enough power.
That should just be enough power to take care of when I do ore processing.
Well, the previous system produced, I think, about 120 for everything.
Yep.
This produces 604 on its own, so...
That's fair.
Just make sure this is balanced. This is eventually going to run out of fuel because we're very short on uranium, but I'll leave it on for now. Now there's the bit that's another step, is making the antimatter. So I took forever to make the antimatter.
What does the scram button do?
Turns it off.
Ow. That's a lot.
I don't know what it stands for. It's like scared, can't react anymore. Scram. There we go. That's what it stands for. Scared, can't react anymore.
If you press this, run.
It's
That's
the
my
press this, and if you think you need to run, press this. So, this system is currently turned completely off. I'm gonna get a copyright strike for. So this pipe here has 172 millibuckets of antimatter in it. So
Okay.
it can pump into either one of these. Don't flick these switches, please, because it will eat it all into a machine and I can't get it back out again. So this chemical oxidizer has 11 millibuckets of antimatter left in it. I used this to fill it with... I filled it with 2,000 millibuckets. It took forever, but it used nearly all the polonium that we'd built up whilst I was building the induction matrix, which was like 3 days. But basically, the machine on the roof, which I'll show you in a second, makes antimatter from polonium. And then if you pump it into here, it crystallizes it into antimatter pellets. I used 2 of them to make the antiprotonic nucleosynthesizer. And this is the thing. It's got 822 millibuckets of antimatter in it, which we can turn on. Basically, if you flick this switch behind it, it'll route the piping into that for the antimatter.
Gotcha.
And then this is the thing we can put stuff in to turn them into other things.
Just a quick question. When
So-
you said that when you turned on the crystallizer it took forever, have you ever considered putting any upgrades in?
Oh no, it wasn't the making the crystallization that was the issue. It was the making the antimatter, and I can't speed that up.
Right, okay.
Making 2,000 antimatter took a very long time.
Fair enough.
I mean, put it this way, I've been using this reactor since we talked about it the other day, and I've made the grand total of 1,000 antimatter in that time.
Have you considered working harder?
Yes. I ran out of resources to work harder. Ow.
Fair.
But yeah, so this will make... But if you ever want to, like, turn something into something else, like, say you need a Heart of the Sea for something, shove a Nether Star in there, and it'll use 5 antimatter to make the Nether Star become a Heart of the Sea, etc. It's not the fastest thing in the world. It uses quite a lot of power, but and it takes ticks to do it. Like, this takes 1,250 ticks to turn a skull into a Wither Skull. But you can do it. Nether Stars into Hearts of the Sea are a good one. You can turn... You don't know why I would need it, but you can turn beacons into end crystals. You can turn coal into diamonds.
As well.
Yep. You can turn beds into respawn anchors, diamonds into emeralds. You can enchant golden apples in it. All kinds of stuff. You can make crying obsidian. You can turn yellow wool into glowstone, which is quite nice. You can turn diamond swords into tridents, which is a useful one.
Yes, until I worked out that we could actually just get them out of ice spawners. Well, unless we figure out that we actually need the fully repaired ones, because that would just be annoying.
I mean, we could just hold them and shower ourselves with experience.
Yeah.
But yeah, so then if you come up to the roof, the final step in our little process...
Oh my god, I could turn eggs into dragon eggs.
You can, yes. And we have a lot of eggs from that chicken in the pig machine thingy.
Oh, and you can turn pots into nautilus shells. That's quite cool. A lot of this feels utterly pointless, but some of it is quite useful. Is there a ladder for those of us that can't fly?
Yeah, there's a lift inside in the corner. So, this switch here turns on the gigantic SPS machine, so the supercritical phase shifter. That takes polonium and turns it into... takes 400 million Fe a tick to turn polonium into antimatter. 1,000 millibuckets of polonium becomes 1 millibucket of antimatter. It's a spicy meal. I'll turn this on. It does some cool zappy particles and makes antimatter, and that gets pumped downstairs. This pipe behind it... Yes.
What if I got inside it?
You would die.
Fair.
It literally can do like 300 damage a tick.
At times.
So don't ever go inside it. Death will occur. This pipe here, covered in the hazard warning signs, is the one that's full of currently of 327,000 millibuckets of polonium. Don't break it, because you'll irradiate everything, hence all the things. But this goes off downstairs, comes back out again over here.
By the really loud bit.
Yeah, by the really loud bit. And that goes to the solar neutron activator, which these are producing. So they turn nuclear waste into polonium. Yeah, in a clean process, so there's no waste left. These other bits can produce polonium pellets and plutonium pellets. So there is some nuclear waste down here in the nuclear waste bunker that we'll not talk about, slowly decomposing into
I'm sort of sad now. Do you mean we're not going to take any of it and just dump it in the Thames? But you're already ahead of me on that one.
Yeah, it's all down here. So we've got some buckets. These are slowly emptying because they do tick down over time. But yeah, I've also...
I don't even know
it's
how
quite
to get
far
in
down.
here. So... Oh, it's down there.
There's a
Oh, you dug it into the building and everything.
Yep. I've deliberately marked the floor with hazard stripes, so that if we're ever mining up, if you see that, stop, because if you break these, again, they will spill nuclear waste everywhere.
Are these, like, super tough, unbreakable blocks? Because you do know what our mining tools are like, don't you?
They're not the weakest, but they're not the toughest either. Just be careful. Dig west, north, or east, never south from the base.
One hit.
Yeah. Just be careful. You'll be fine. But yeah, that's where we keep the nuclear waste. That's where we keep the nuclear waste. Let's just not talk about that anymore. It's fine.
Right.
It'll eventually all disappear. It ticks down at like 0.5 of a millibucket every like 10 ticks or something. So eventually there will be no nuclear waste left. It's fine. But yeah, so that's the nuclear reactor. This big thing outside is the induction matrix, which is slowly filling up. The machines to make the fuel use between 40 and 60, depending which are running, kilo FE a tick. So they're quite hungry, but this is still getting charged at 603, so we've got a net gain of like 550 kilo FE a tick going into this thing, which is quite nice, and it can hold a lot of power. So these little blocks inside basically hold the power, so we can make it bigger as well.
I was about to say, can you just put more blocks inside this thing then?
Yeah, so these things are the second tier. They took a lot of resources to make. As I say, I'd never done it before, didn't know how it worked, probably spent more resources than we need, because do we really need 435.2 giga FE? Not really, but it's there now, so we've got it. But I did burn through thousands of chromatic iron and steel and resources to build this, but we now basically have the end game of mechanism, so...
Yeah, I was going to say, we're not exactly short of things. I mean, the
No,
logical
we don't
thing
have...
to do now is for me to just get a digital miner, and then I can just eternally set it mining and processing things.
I mean, we do have the power to run a digital miner, so yeah, you could do.
Mm-hmm.
So that's an option. But yeah, the only thing left to do in mechanism is to make a fusion reactor. But honestly, we just don't need it. So I'm probably
So if we're
not
going to do
bother.
that, can we make it slightly further away?
There's no radioactive waste with a fusion reactor. It's just a big mash two things together to get helium.
Yeah, but they're a wee bit on the dangerous side, aren't they?
I mean, they only potentially become the sun.
So, I'm thinking maybe just put it slightly further away than the last one that you plonked behind the greenhouse. I will say it does look very cool on the world map.
It does look very industrial and cool looking, doesn't it? But it is slightly Chernobyl-esque next to the... I mean, I put it there originally...
Sort of plonked it round the back.
Well, I put it there originally because the mushrooms look like a radiated cow, so I was like, it looks like there's been a spillage. And then it was the radiation leak. Yeah, and then everyone died. But, it's fine.
All of my villagers, all of the everything. Was there another leak at some point? Because I've lost the last original axolotl, I've just noticed. There's only one left.
Like a few hours after the original one, there was another leak.
But
to be fair, that wasn't my fault technically. A pipe pulled. Right. It turns out that if you accidentally collect two pipes together, it will prioritise radioactive materials over non-radioactive materials. So it just emptied the pipe of tens of thousands of steam and filled it full of radioactive gas instead. And then I broke it, not knowing that had happened, and then there was radiation everywhere. But it's fixed now. Just don't worry about it.
It's just we used to have like 5 or 6 in here. Now there's just lots left.
Lots left.
Poor little guy.
Yeah. It was a thing. They may have had to be a command to remove it the second time. It was a bad time. Yeah. Well, it's fine. Right. So that is a big update on the base because completely minor update in addition. But I also finished building the train station because it was just lying there as a frame and it was annoying me. So we do now have a finished train station.
I looked at this. Really... I can't remember.
I don't know.
Oh, I think I have done. Yeah. Oh, actually, yes, I remember this now.
Speaker block. Mind the gap.
Oh yeah, you've been. It annoys me that it says speaker block.
Yes, I know. I was trying to find out a way to turn that off, but alas, you cannot.
So you've got an office that's got nothing in it currently, and then you've got a train shop which has got nothing in it currently, but it is a train station with a clock and a speaker and a platform and a train. Which is, the key components to a train station, I feel.
We could put an extra car on the back here and fill it with all the waste barrels.
The problem is you can't move waste barrels.
Ow. Well, that's short-sighted.
If we wanted to do that, we'd have to put new waste barrels on it, then pump the waste over from the other ones, which is quite a long way, and then it'd be fine. Oh, I suppose we could move the train to the waste, might be quicker.
Do they become fixed entities and unable to move, though? Like, would you try and move the train, and would they just stay still?
I mean, we could glue them to the train. I'm not sure how well that would go.
How? So rude.
But yeah, so that's a Whistle Stop Tour update of the base. Big update, to be fair. It took a lot of doing over several days, but it looks pretty cool, and we've got all of our power systems sorted. It is all plumbed in as well, so everything is running off that now. The old power system I've turned off so that it's still running, but it's not connected to the power to the power network anymore. You have to flip a switch to turn it on. That will then go, cool, say we need a dump of power for some reason. I think in total we could dump about 1 giga FE of power into the system from the 2 other battery banks if we need it. So there is a backup system there, should it be necessary.
Bad going.
But, to be fair, we've got 200 giga FE in the system, so dumping 1 into it is, dropping the ocean stuff, really.
I'm going to say it makes my little setup down here feel kind of puny by comparison.
I mean, to be fair, your setup does everything else mechanism related. That literally just makes power. That is it. It can do nothing else. It's balanced to produce fissile fuel and then make power. That is all it does.
That's fair. It's very
this
busy
does
here.
everything else. Yeah. Oh, it's more busy now because I put all these logistical pipes in
Yes,
to
I
do
know.
this
What is
thing,
all this?
I couldn't be asked using routers. I like pipes.
I've got no issue with the pipes, but do something better with them. This is why I spent hours sinking these all back into the wall and lining them with...
Well, I had to make loads of plastic to make one of the bits. I can't remember what it was. I think it was the battery. I had to make a load of plastic, and it was taking forever, so I just made it so I could turn it on and leave it, and it worked. I made loads of plastic. So you can probably just dismantle it if you wanted to. I mean, it's done now.
Well, you did just make me a new hammer.
Don't do it with the hammer. Oh, my criminy. Silas is level 80, well 81 actually, and we made him the new hammer at last, and it makes my hammer look puny, and my hammer's pretty big. I mean, I can mine that much. He can mine 2 more blocks in every direction. It's terrifying.
It's alarming.
What's with the giant orifice of power over here, by the way? What made you decide to change that to this?
What? Oh, I wanted to sink the cables in, and then I also didn't want to because if I sunk them in, then the crafting grid would have stood forward and looked weird. So I thought, well, I'll just make it a little feature.
Fair enough. And yeah, we've got 1K HDP, whatever it is, pellets. So, HDPE pellets. So there's plenty of those now.
Sweet.